Basically, how this is going to work is we are going to start with speeches. You guys are all going to have a minute. And without further ado, our president-elect, we have Aliyah Manansala.
Hi, I'm running for president. Hey, juniors, being able to serve our class as an officer for the past 3 years has been a huge blessing. As your current class president, I've had the privilege to work with some of you, as well as other officers, to lead our class to first place in both the Sixers and BOTC rallies. I look forward to continuing this and implementing new ideas, such as the senior trip, movie night, and charity event. I also look forward to bettering our air bands and class meetings, as well as increasing our funds, participation, and class spirit. With my leadership experience, I know what it takes to plan activities effectively in order for us to have the amazing year that we want. I will do this through facilitating conversation and cooperation in class office so that we can work to better serve you. Because let's be real, in order to have a winning and spirited class, you need strong leaders leading by example. Moving forward, I aim to create an inclusive and fun environment for our class. I will continue to give my 100% effort and put your ideas into action in order to make the class of 2022 even better. My name is Aliyah Manansala, and I would love to be your class president.
Our vice president-elect, we have Karyll Cortez.
Hi, I'm Karyll. Hey juniors, my name is Karyll Cortez and I'm running to become your class vice president to make sure we have the most memorable year we can and so that I can implement my new ideas. I firmly believe in leading by example, and being involved is one of the best ways that we can do that, because if we want to convince everyone to be involved, I think we have to be ourselves. Over the last 2 years, I have participated in both in-person and virtual rallies, and that's made me equipped to be not only have the experience of a class officer, but to be equipped to handle any circumstances head on. And I have plenty of leadership experience being pub for 2 clubs, as well as the president of a nonprofit youth organization. And some new ideas I would like to implement are holding more activities like raffles, karaoke night, and as well as improve on the class activities that we already have like COCO, BOTC, and even figure out how to make Senior Sunrise more friendly. With these skills, I can contribute as vice president. Together, we can make our senior year, the best it can be, and vote for me. And remember, you'll never have to stress with Cortez as vice pres.
Hello, I'm Steven. Hey, future seniors. My name is Stephen Lee, and for the upcoming 2021 school year, I'm looking to take my part in leading our class to success by becoming your class vice president. Now, being a leader in high school can be difficult due to the existence of setbacks, roadblocks, and conflict. As a student athlete for a multitude of years, as well as a person that's taken a variety of AP classes, I believe that I've proven time and time again, whereas through countless hours spent at gyms, practicing how to pass the ball, or through countless hours spent in after-school workshops, practicing how to pass my exams, that I can both maintain and exemplify the characteristics of a good, strong leader. If elected as vice president, I promise to strive towards success in the usual rallies, air bands, and fundraisers, in addition to dedicating my energy and time to success in school events such as prom, all of which ensure that you, the class of 2022, has an amazing school year full of memories that'll last a lifetime. So on April 22nd, please vote me, Stephen Lee, as your VP for the upcoming 2021 school year.
Hi, I'm Danica. Hi, juniors. My name is Danica Ibus, and I'm running to be your class treasurer. As our year comes close, I want to be able to give us an unforgettable senior year next year by implementing new ideas such as senior class activities and events. As a student who wasn't initially from the class office, I want to be able to implement my ideas as a student. I've been involved in many class activities such as Powder Puff, BOTC, and helping in the rally games, and I've also been able to help the class itself, and I want to help.
Thank you, Danica.
I'm Sophie.
Hey, class of 2022. Many of you may know me from our winning class air bands, but for those who don't, my name is Sophie Drueco, and I'm running to be your class secretary. If I'm elected to be your secretary, I'll be able to help plan and organize senior activities such as prom, senior sunrise, and many more, making sure everyone in our class gets a say in certain decisions in our senior activities. When I first entered high school, I instantly knew I wanted to be more involved at Independence. I spent time in leadership roles such as being a part of 2 clubs to make Independence a safe and welcoming place for others. I'm also involved in class activities such as being a part of class air band, multiple rally games, and class paint sessions. Despite not being in class office this year, I have good communication skills and involvement with activities as a regular student. If I'm elected to be your secretary, I will be able to give us an unforgettable senior year full of fun and organized senior activities.
The candidates will have 1 minute to think about the response to the question, and each will have 1 minute to respond. So the first question is to everyone. What new ideas do you have for your class office this upcoming school year? Starting with presidential candidates, we have Aliyah Manansala.
Our past year and sophomore year, our classes had a lot of spirit, and this led us to have successful activities. Senior year in itself has a lot in store for us with prom and the senior sunrise. So I'm not too worried about creating new events and stuff like that, since a lot of things are going to be new for us next year. But some things I would like to do, like I said in my speech, include a senior trip where we can go somewhere like Great America, for example, or Santa Cruz, and then a movie night where we can actually watch at the theater, and that'll be nice bonding as a class. And then also a charity event where we can, as a class, decide on where we want to donate to, and then for our fundraiser, we can have our fundraiser specifically like for that thing. And I think that's a really cool thing that we can do as a class, so that we're not only doing fun stuff, but we're also leaving behind like a legacy for high school. And it sets an example to the future classes, showing that we can do something not just for ourselves, but for other people.
And then going to the vice president candidates, let's start with Stephen Lee.
Okay, so for the upcoming school year, I have two main ideas that I've already thought of. Obviously, as the time progresses, then I'll think of more ideas that I can implement. But the first idea that I thought of was a sort of role outline for class office specifically, because I think in past years, I felt personally that I was unsure of what roles I needed to fill, like what responsibilities I needed to do. So I think a sort of Google Forms, or not Google Forms, a Google Docs or a Google Sheets would be pretty useful for class officers to know what roles they need to fill and what responsibilities they need to carry out. And my second idea uh, would be a class feedback system. I did talk about this last year when I was running, and I failed to implement it this year. But I think this was mainly due to the circumstances involved with distance learning and learning online, and participation was just overall difficult. But the class feedback system would essentially be like a Google Forms where students could um, enter whatever feedback they have for the class, whether it's positive feedback.
Stephen.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to Karyll Cortez.
New ideas that I have for our class office in terms of having a system. I think it's very important that everyone fulfills their roles, does their part. Everyone does have roles, whether you're treasurer, secretary, vice president, president. And I believe that it's very important that everyone is able to follow that, and as well as being able to cater to our class. Since we are class officers, we are the ones that are making decisions for them. We represent them. So we want to make sure that everything that we're doing, everything that we are passing, whether they're activities or new rules that we want to follow, we need to make sure that they are the things that our class wants to do, and not just things that class office wants to do. So I believe that keeping communication with our class is something that we do need to keep, because whether it's distance learning, hybrid, whether we're fully back in school, which I'm really hoping for, we are able to cater to the people and do things that they want us to do, and we are able to help them as a class office.
Thank you, Vice President candidates. Moving on to the Secretary-elect, we have Sophie Drueco.
So a new idea I have for our school year is a fundraiser idea, which is like a car wash. And since a lot of us can drive next year because we're seniors, I think it would be cool to have this new car wash fundraiser. And we would probably pay like $20. People would have to pay like $20 each, and it would be such a cool idea because even if there is like COVID circumstances, we can do it outside in the parking lot. People can just wait in their cars, and we can just stay outside and wear masks. And then I also think it could be a new senior tradition for everyone, for juniors, sophomores, freshmen that can do it when they're seniors. And also, if we want to do like a boba fundraiser at the same time, we can do like bundle deals. Like we can do like boba, and then you can get like a $5 off your like car wash. And then if you want to buy a class t-shirt, you can get like $5 off your car wash too. So I think that would be really cool.
Thank you, Sophie. Moving on to our treasurer-elect, we have Danica Ibus.
Much like what Sophie said, I think we should have more community like events, such as like for me, I like to be hanging out with my friends, and we can do social distancing activities and events like a possible senior bonfire, as like we separate and social distance for 6 feet for COVID safety reasons. And even though we were given the disadvantages of these events and activities, I'd like for us to join as a community, since we were limited this year, and to hopefully give us a memorable senior year as we come back in person possibly. And another idea that I had was bringing back fundraisers that we liked in the past, such as those T Pump fundraisers that helped us financially. So even though that's not a new idea, I'd also like to bring more fundraising ideas that'll fit everyone's needs and cater their interests. That will also
Thank
help
you,
us.
Danica.
Okay, next question.
Have you been involved in your class for the past few years of high school? If not, why? And after the minute is up, we'll start back again with the treasurer candidates.
I have been involved in my class for the past few years with helping set up for BOTC and also being a part of the class powder puff team. And even in social distancing or even in COVID and online distance learning, I've also helped in the past, not physically, but supporting our class spirit-wise by being involved in our class spirit weeks and participating in some of our class activities. And even in regular school days, I've also helped set up for our quad day and also participated in rally games. You might have seen me at the pyramid class activity for our BOTC, oh no, for our HOCO rally. And I've also helped set up and I've also made a flyer for our class when they needed one.
Thank you,
And
Danica.
Thank you. And then moving on to our secretary candidates, we have Sophie Drueco.
Ever since freshman year, I have been really involved with their class. I've been in about 7 airband performances, and I also helped choreograph one airband for Christmas, which is a dance. I also go to a lot of paint sessions. Like sometimes we have them on the weekends, so then I would go to school and help with the paint sessions. And I also am involved with a lot of rally games for BOTC freshman year. I was in like crab soccer, and then I was also in this like other one, but I forgot what it was called. But I also participate in Spirit Weeks, and I even during COVID, I just did it online too. So I participated in person and online. So I try to stay pretty active in class activities.
Thank you. And moving on to our vice president candidates, we have Karyll Cortez.
Over the past few years, I've definitely been involved in our class activities. You might have seen me in our HOCO games. I was also part of that pyramid. I think Danica need my back. And you may have seen me in our air bands, Clueless, it's pretty iconic. And I've also helped out in painting sessions. I helped paint one of those backdrops. And you may have also seen me in some of our virtual air bands. I was able to play Lady Gaga as well as Candlehead from Wreck-It Ralph. I definitely am really grateful to be able to help in those, not only in being in it, but also helping make it and present it to the class, making sure it's the best that it can be. I've helped set up rallies when we were in person. I've also participated in virtual rally games. You may have remembered that I won the rapping Jackbox game. I can't remember what it's called, but I definitely placed first for that one. I remember that. And I've been able to help in person and virtually. So I really hope that makes me a better candidate because I am definitely prepared to help
Thank you,
out.
Karyll.
Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to Stephen Lee.
If we're talking about in-person events, I will admit in the first 2 years of my high school career, I guess, I wasn't the most outgoing person. But as time went on, I grew out of my shell. And towards the end of sophomore year, before quarantine hit, I did participate in Powder Puff. However, this junior year, online distance learning, despite it being a whole different thing, I still have found ways to participate in my class. So for example, at the Sixers rally, I participated in a Minecraft rally game. And because it was online, the Minecraft rally game was a pretty big deal at the rally. And then when the BOTC rally rolled around this year, I participated in the Valorant game, which earned us $75 for our class, which is a pretty substantial amount, as well as another game, Brawlhalla. And at BOTC, we had a class TikTok where we had to post too and comment, share, like as much as we could. I got a group of my friends to participate in that, and we accounted for at least 40,000 comments, which I'm pretty sure is a pretty substantial amount considering that we had like 80,000 at the end.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, vice president candidates. And now we'll move on to our presidential candidate, Aliyah Manansala.
I've been very involved in our class for the past few years, actually all 3 since I was a class officer for all 3 years. And I've also been able to participate in air bands and some rally games, but then, I'm mainly the one like in charge of organizing it, so I don't get to perform as much as the rest of our class. But I hope to encourage other people to be more involved with our class because it's a very fun experience.
Thank you, Aliyah.
Thank you, Aliyah. Next question, please. To the VP candidates, how will you assist the class president in performing the duties needed to lead the class? Alrighty, and let's begin with Stephen Lee.
Over the last school year as a returning vice president, I've been able to learn the ins and outs of office and seeing how the president works, how the vice president should work, how the treasurer should work, and how secretary should work, and overall just how office should work in general. And I think that experience will help me assist the class president in times of need. Whenever the president is out, then obviously the vice president should be able to fill in and lead the class office whenever necessary. Additionally, I think that a strong communication between vice president and the president will be strong and key in helping the class president perform the duties needed to lead the class. Because I think communication allows people to work better and they'll know what they need to do and the responsibilities they need to do, and they'll be more confident in what actions they need to carry out rather than confusion and having to rely on one person to carry out every single duty possible.
Thank you, Stephen. Moving on to Karyll Cortez.
In assisting the class president as vice president, I know it's my duty to step in when they aren't around, but I know it also means that I have to keep the rest of class office in check just in case things might not be going as smoothly as they should be, taking initiative. Definitely, if it's something you shouldn't need to be asked to do, you should just step in and do it, as well as making sure the work being delegated to the rest of the class officers is as even as equal and no one is doing extra responsibilities that they didn't sign up for. And even in stepping in and stepping up to do little things that might need a little assistance, like emailing a teacher or making sure that forms are filled out. But that also means that we have to set boundaries, because as much as we can help out as best as we can, making sure that we're not doing someone else's job for them and our work isn't all being put on 2 or 3 people when there's a cabinet of 6 or 7, making sure that we have those boundaries is very important because we're able to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President candidates. Next question, please. To everyone, why did you choose to run for your specific position? And when we return for the 1 minute, we'll start with the secretary candidates. We have Sophie Drueco.
So I think a main part for being like secretary is to be very organized. And myself, I'm very organized because I take really good notes, and I also have a planner because I love planning my days every day. And since I'm already really involved with class activities such as airband, I think it would be really cool to since there's behind the scene airbands, I think I really value little details and stuff. And if I become secretary, I can focus on those details and make sure our class is updated. And I just and since I was already involved already, I think if I have a better role in class office itself, I get to make sure everything is going well. And if anyone who's not really involved wants to have a say, I can make sure to put that into our class activities or our airbands if anyone wants other feedback as well.
Thank you, Sophie. On to our treasurer candidate, we have Danica Ibus.
I chose to be treasurer. I chose to run for treasurer for a specific reason, because I know that I'm able to handle money pretty well, and I can help our class financially by choosing the right discounts and stuff that'll not only be helpful for our class, but also it'll also help me in the future. And being able to give us multiple merchandise or multiple activities that we can spend our money on, I can use my ability to budget and to help create savings for future activities. I think it'll help us I think it'll help us pretty much give us a memorable year because we'll have so much to hold and also a lot to look back on.
Thank you. And on to our vice president candidates. Let's start with Karyll Cortez.
As someone who's been very involved in our class activities, I kind of got a glimpse of what it was like to be a class officer, helping out in painting, setting up for rallies, things like that. I chose to run for vice president because I think that is where I can contribute most of my talents and abilities. As a president of a organization outside of school, I believe that I have the outside experience to be able to contribute and help our president as best as I can. And I didn't want to run for president for this reason because I've never been in class office before, and I didn't want to have to run with no experience. So I chose to be vice president because I can bring all of those qualities as well as help someone inside our class without being super overwhelmed because I'm running for the first time. So that's why I chose to become vice president.
Thank you, and on to Stephen Lee.
Your minute starts now.
To start this answer off, I want to put my experience aside as an officer this last year because I don't think that's necessarily fair for the other candidates to say that, oh, I was an officer this year, you should vote for me next year. But I think the main reason I decided to run for vice president is because I'm aware of what a VP does. I personally have connections with past vice presidents, whether it's our class vice president or the vice president of another class who I'm really good friends with. And they were able to tell me about, oh, what is the role of vice president? What roles should they carry out and what should they be able to do? And the second reason I decided to run was because I wanted to stop the issue of having one candidate. I think time and time again, a flaw in our class office is that not many people want to run. And so I wanted to make sure that I was able to give other students the ability to have another option to vote for and make sure that it's not like, oh, I'm going to have to vote for this person because they're the only one running and then lead to conflict later in the year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President candidates, and on to our presidential candidate, Aliyah Manansala.
So being that I'm the only person in our class that was a class officer for the past 3 years of high school, and I know how class office functions, I'm fit to lead our class. And that's why I ran for president, is because I really enjoyed my past years in office and seeing how our class can come together and be really spirited. So I decided to run for the president position specifically because I was already class president this year and I had a really good time. And I feel like there's a lot that we can improve in our class next year. So I look forward to doing that with the help of the other officers. And I also have experience outside of class office because I run 3 clubs. So I feel that I can bring what I learned this year and incorporate that into next year to make our year even better than this year.
Thank you, Aliyah. Next question, please. To everyone, how do you plan on engaging your class if we return this fall from quarantine? And when we return from the 1 minute, we'll start from the presidential candidates and end to the treasurers. Okay, starting with our presidential candidate, we have Aliyah Manansala.
Knowing that our class was very spirited when we left off our sophomore year, I have no doubt that when we go back, whatever we plan will be pretty successful, because even when we left for quarantine, our class was really disappointed that we didn't have a BOTC. So going back as seniors and having that class spirit be able to be put out again will be really exciting for our class. I think that even just with like homecoming or the first rally, our class will be very excited just by us planning things such as like fundraisers or even activities like for quad day. Yeah, doing those things just how we've done it before, but then bettering the way that our class office works in itself will be enough to engage our class.
Thank you, Aliyah. And going on to our vice president candidates, let's start with Stephen Lee.
I think the main plan that I have for engagement if we return to the school this fall is holding more class meetings. I think it was a pretty big hit this year because over Zoom it was kind of easy. You could just send a link and then have people join the meetings. And I think class meetings were pretty good overall, regardless of it being distance learning, because we were able to connect with friends regardless of the distance we were between them, because obviously it's an online environment. But I think implementing class meetings in person will be a great way for us to engage with the class, because we're all going to be grouped together. We're all going to be talking about like our goals for the school year, about how we can improve our class or our class office. And I think it'll just be a great time, regardless of the circumstances surrounding it. And I think another way we can get engagement is to just simply reach out to people. Obviously, I think everyone's going to have to go through a transition period where we transition from online to in-person learning. And I think reaching out to people and telling them, hey, you should get involved in this or that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to Karyll Cortez.
Engaging our class, I think, is something very easy. We used to be very hype. If you remember our sophomore year, our Clueless promo, we had so much going on social media, so much word of mouth. Everyone was so excited. And, returning from quarantine doesn't mean that COVID goes away. So making accommodations for people that make things more COVID friendly, social distancing, making sure everyone's wearing their masks, it can definitely make sure that people are not only excited for our class activities and that making them want to be more engaged, but that they also have that safety of knowing that even though we're all coming back from school, we're all coming back to school and making that transition, it'll be safe and no one's gonna risk themselves as to getting COVID, and just bringing back everything that we had on social media. I know we were a little bit dry this year because we didn't have as many activities, but hopefully we'll be able to bring all of that back, even if it's only some of us that are back in person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President candidates. Moving on to the Secretary-elect, we have Sophie Drueco.
I don't think our class really has like a problem with engagement, because if you can tell, we're really like engaged already during quarantine. Like a lot of our class participated in like Spirit Weeks, and we got to win HOCO season and BOT season rallies, which was really cool. And I think once we return, I think everyone will be ready for senior year, but I think to encourage everything, we will just put our 1,000% effort into everything. Like for toga day, we can do like we can just put our 1,000% into everything, and like games and like rallies, we just put 1,000%, and then more people will be able to come, because who doesn't like winning? Like everyone will come if we just win, like. And I think it would just be fun if like maybe we got like a microphone for like fundraisers, and we can like talk through it. And then like I think if we just have like a lot of spirit, and then everyone will just come because everyone just loves winning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. Moving on to the Treasurer-elect, we have Danica Ibus.
Engaging in our class, we're pretty engaged, like what Sophie said. I plan on hosting or organizing fundraisers that will encourage people. So like I'd have people suggest fundraisers that they find interesting, and also reaching out and using social media, because we have a TikTok and a Discord, and we can create a messenger group chat to socialize with the students, and also ask their opinions on what we should do to better our senior year, and also hosting multiple fundraisers that we can all enjoy, that'll help benefit for future activities, and
Thank
also
you.
promoting.
Next question to everyone. What kind of legacy do you want to leave here at school? And when we return from the 1 minute, we'll start with the vice president candidates and then like snake our way through. Alrighty, starting with a vice presidential candidate, Stephen Lee.
To answer this question, I think it's good to reference what I said in my main speech. And in this main speech, I said that I wanted to, if elected as vice president, I'd want to build and maintain independence culture. And I think that lends itself to the legacy that I want to leave at school, because I think one of the things that jumps out is a rally culture. Obviously, as upcoming seniors and with the past events where we skipped BOTC for our sophomore year and we had an online BOTC for our junior year, quite literally we're the only ones that have been to an actual BOTC rally like that's in person. So I want to make sure that as seniors we're able to show the underclassmen how rallies should be run. Obviously, as times change, then the rallies will change as well. I'm completely open for that. But as seniors at Independence, I want to like send a message to this underclassmen to see, oh, this is how rallies should be run. This is how things should operate at the school. And I think that's a big part of maintaining our legacy as Independence Sixers. If we're an officer next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, and then on to Cortez.
The legacy I would want our class to leave behind is, as good as it is to be the class that's so hyped, so excited, we win games even though we weren't seniors. I think that is a legacy that I would want to leave behind, because everyone was known to be so happy and everyone was able to help out. But I also want to make sure that our class would get the opportunity to not only win a bunch of stuff for our school, you know, all of those activities, but also be able to give back to our community, whether that be working with clubs that already have drives, you know, work with drives, holding something of our own. Being able to give back to the community is so important, not only to me, but I'm sure so many other people in our class, because it's definitely achievable if we all work together, you know, as class of 22 and bring up all of that hype that we have for rallies and BOTC, take that and put that energy into being able to give back into the community. I think that is a legacy that we should also be able to leave behind. And even in
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President candidates. And on to our Secretary candidate, we have Sophie Drueco.
I do believe that we will be returning in the fall, so it would be such a cool thing for like us for like 2 years. We're going to be like the senior class returning, because the last 2 senior years people didn't get to go to school, and if we are able to return back, I think it would be cool to have we get to have our activities back, and we're gonna like take back like all this COVID stuff and like try to like make our senior year awesome. And I think a cool thing we can leave by is like a time capsule thing, where we would probably do like this. We'll probably like leave out a Google form and asking the question, what items, like we'll have like a list of items, and like what items will represent our generation or like this year, and then it could be like a bunch of items or something, and then we can all vote, because like not all of us can like leave something in a time capsule, but if we can all agree on an item, we can do that, and then for our reunion, we can open it together, which would be really cool. And then I just want this year to be cool because
Thank
of you.
you.
Thank you, Sophie. And on to our treasurer candidate, we have Danica Ibus.
I want to leave the school with a fun legacy, make us like the fun class, because everyone's gonna know us as the seniors that won BOTC and HOCO, and being able to be known as the class that's hyped and fun, it'll make the underclassmen want to have the same energy that we have, and being able to be a part of the fun class by like hosting many events, being more engaged in the upcoming school year, and also giving them ideas to help them for their senior years and their final years as general, since they're going to be the upcoming classes, and being able to just be remembered in good terms and like good and a good idea is like what I want. I want to be remembered good rather
Thank
than
you.
Thank you, Danica. And on to our presidential candidate, we have Aliyah Manansala.
In the previous years, but especially my freshman year, I really looked up to the seniors and was in awe of their class spirit and kindness. So I want our class to kind of replicate that, but also be unique. I want our class to be kind and supportive of the underclassmen. And I feel that, like I said in my speech, as officers, we need to lead as an example. So we need to be those people that are able to be looked up to and be kind to other people and supportive. And the type of legacy that I want to leave at the school is knowing that I was able to create like activities where they were memorable enough for people to remember them in the future. And even though it may not be a really significant thing in your future, at least you had fun in the moment. And that's something I really want to leave behind.
Thank you, Aliyah. Ali, next question, please. To everyone, describe one of your biggest weaknesses and how you plan on overcoming that. And let's start with our Secretary-elect, Sophie Drueco.
I think one of my biggest weaknesses is that I was never a class officer in the past, so I don't know what it's like to be a class officer. But since I'm already really involved in class office activities, like such as airband and stuff, I think I can really overcome that because I know what it's kind of like to be involved with our class. And I'm a really fast learner, and like one of my best friends, Eliza Chua, who is like secretary right now, I think she can really help me adjust to secretary. And if I need like any mentoring, she can help me. But I'm a pretty fast learner, so I think I can adjust very easily to that. But since I wasn't a class officer before, I think it will be a little bit trouble in the beginning. But I think over time, I can adjust very easily after.
Thank you, Sophie. And let's go over to our vice president candidates, starting with Karyll Cortez.
One of my biggest weaknesses was definitely adjusting to having everything on distance learning, on Zoom over the course of quarantine. It was definitely a big change for me because I got so much energy from the people around me to want to not only participate, but also, be motivated to participate in our classes and things like that. And throughout this year, I've been able to improve on that because a lot of the activities, well, all of our activities were held online, and being able to participate in those, whether it was airband rally games or our online quad day, I think that I've been able to get more experience in overcoming kind of my slump with distance learning, and hopefully as time continues, I'll be able to continue improving and use those skills to help our class.
Thank you, Karyll. And moving on to Stephen Lee.
I think one of my biggest weaknesses is just not being the most outgoing person and not knowing like how high school culture necessarily is. And I think a lot of that is attributed to my middle school and elementary school. I went to Orchard, which was a K through 8. So I didn't necessarily have that transition period from elementary to middle school where I'm like, oh, these are new students from another school. But going into high school, as I said, I wasn't the most outgoing person. I didn't necessarily participate in the most class things, such as like air bands and rally games. But as time went on, I think I definitely began to solve that. I started participating in more class activities, as I said, powder puff. And I think just as time goes on, I'm going to be able to learn more things and learn how to be more outgoing, be more confident in my abilities. And I think that overcoming this weakness will only take time, and it'll eventually be solved as we enter our senior year.
And now moving on to our presidential candidate, we have Aliyah Manansala.
I'd say that one of my biggest weaknesses is wanting to take over everything, in the way that if someone doesn't work on their assignment just because they don't want to do it or they're not interested in it, I'm like, oh, it's fine, I'll do it. So that's something I need to work on because I don't want to, burn out or anything like that. And I can't burn out because if you're leading the class, you have to be able to perform at your best. So that's something I want to improve on. I'm going to overcome this weakness this year by holding people accountable. So if you don't do your work, I'm going to have a talk with that person and be like, why aren't you doing it? And ask them if I can help in any way, but not necessarily just take it on because they don't want to do it.
Thank you, Aliyah. And now to our treasurer candidate, we have Danica Ibus.
My biggest weakness has to be my social anxiety and how I'm really bad at socializing. I think it's pretty obvious, but I'm able to overcome it if I'm more comfortable with my surroundings. I think I'll be able to overcome it. I know I'll be able to overcome it eventually once I go closer with the class office and with more of the students and help myself become more open rather than hiding and being scared. But I consider that my biggest weakness because it's just, I think everyone has social anxiety and it creeps up on me really bad. And the fact that I'll get over it eventually, I know I can use it to my better potential and help me in the future when I'm in the real world.
Thank you, Danica. Next question, please. POV, you are now part of your class office and there was conflict with other class officers. How do you plan on approaching or solving this conflict? And when we return for the 1 minute, we'll go from president to the secretary candidates. Starting with our presidential candidate, we have Aliyah Manansala.
In the past 3 years, conflicts have definitely risen in class office. And this is really good for me because I learn ways to deal with it and things to avoid. So for example, moving forward with the next class office, I know the importance of including adults and advisors into the planning process so that things can run smoother. And when a conflict does arise, it's important this is something I did this year, which is hold a Zoom meeting so that it's not just all over text and people's emotions are getting the best of them, but we can actually talk one-on-one over Zoom. And if that doesn't work, then of course we can ask our advisors for guidance because seeing it from an outside perspective, we'll be able to see things better instead of everything being biased or clouded because of the emotions that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's move on to vice presidential candidates, starting with Stephen Lee.
I first want to say that obviously there isn't going to be this golden rule that officers can point to and say, you should do this and all the problems are solved, because situations are going to vary and people take time to learn, people take time to heal, people take time to just grow as a person. But ultimately, if there is conflict and first off, if there is conflict, I think the officers should try to communicate our differences, communicate why there was a conflict in the first place, and hopefully try to resolve that. But if worst comes to worst and we're not able to communicate and not resolve that solution instantly, then obviously we're going to have adults that we can come to. We can talk to our class advisors. We can talk to Mr. Logan, who is our leadership teacher. And I think they can help us take steps towards resolution, because conflict, it's not good to like just leave in the air. I think it's important to like fight for success and not resolve to continue conflict, because that's not healthy for our office, that's not healthy for our class.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Going on to Karyll Cortez.
I believe that every situation is definitely different. Everything depends on what the circumstances are, what the conflict was, what happened. So I believe that definitely talking to them about it, there is definitely a reason why some things are happening, whether they're acting differently, whether they're not doing their job, whether it's something that seems out of character for them, there's always going to be a reason why. And I think being able to solve that conflict first with the individuals themselves is going to be a big help in trying to solve the conflict with them as the two people with each other, or multiple people if there are. So I believe that just being able to support them in whatever is going on with their lives is definitely a big help. It's definitely a big first step that can be taken if there is conflict. And if it doesn't get resolved with that, there are definitely other ways, like having them confront each other, or even like taking it to higher ups like Mr. Logan or our class advisors.
Thank you, Vice President candidates. And now on to our treasurer-elect.
There are going to be times where not everyone agrees on the same thing, and it'll cause conflict, obviously. And as my part as an officer, I will step up and honestly help them work it out. And if it gets too out of hand, just talk to an advisor or even Mr. Logan. And even though it's difficult for us to work on things, it's better to make sure it works, but also make sure everything's like handled properly, rather than having it left on bad terms, because nobody really likes negative energy. It's not cool. And being able to also communicate with one another will most likely help us in the future with problems that we come across.
Thank you, Danica. And now on to Sophie.
Your minute starts now.
I think being a part of class office, you have to be prepared to have like other opinions and like people like not agreeing with you always. But I do think communication is really important, which is the very important key if you want to try to avoid conflict. And I think it's important for class officers to get along. And I think bonding would help that if we got to like hang out and like get to know each other, because it's more the chance of you guys like fighting is very increased if you guys don't really know each other, or you guys like don't hang out. But you can decrease like conflict if you know them and you get to communicate with them, and I think that's important. And if it's not between me and someone else and it's between other two people, I think it's important to sit them down, and I need to step up and talk to them. And hopefully I will understand both sides. Of course, I'm not going to be like biased towards another, but I think it's important to understand everyone's point of view in cases like this. But
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your responses. Great job. Ali, do you have anything to add?
Everyone watching at home, make sure to vote tomorrow, Thursday. Voting will be live after third period until 11:59. For more information about your password and login info, you can check out our Indie Activities website or our Indie Activities Instagram. And just be on the general lookout for election results and more updates to come. So thank you all for coming, and see you guys.